House arrest. That was one way lockdown was described. Admittedly, this was by The Sun, although many other newspapers seem to share similar sentiments. Will we ever be free? Life put on hold. This narrative of lockdown as being some kind of hell on earth seemed to be very common during the early days of COVID, and clearly for a lot of people, being forced to stay at home for 3 months was equivalent to house arrest. But if I were writing the headlines, then they would have been very different. Difficult though it was in many ways, I loved lockdown because of the time it afforded me at home. Having 3 months to stay at home with having no obligations to see anyone or do anything was frankly a dream, and it was also an introvert's idea of heaven. However, saying that makes it seem like there's only one side to the labels introvert and extrovert, that introverts love lockdown purely because they hate socializing and vice versa for extroverts. However, these two terms are often thrown around nowadays. However, in my opinion, their definitions are very often twisted, particularly when it comes to the label introvert. Introverts are seen as withdrawn, reclusive, and shy, whereas extroverts are seen as chatty and sociable. However, psychologists have a different definition. The key difference between introverts and extroverts lies in where they gain energy. So when introverts are tired and worn down, we prefer to recharge alone, whereas extroverts prefer to recharge in the company of other people. So for myself, I would consider myself an introvert, but I don't think I'm withdrawn or shy. In fact, I love talking and having conversations with people. It's just that I prefer to think deeply before speaking, whereas extroverts prefer to think out loud. I also love socializing and having conversations, socializing and, having fun with my friends and family. It's just that after a while, I feel my social batteries start to run down and I need to catch a break every now and then. So I may be loving your party, but don't be surprised if I pop to the loo a couple of times. No, I don't have a bad case of food poisoning. It's just that every so often I need to catch a break. Some of you may relate deeply, in which case, welcome to the club, although as this tweet says, don't worry, there's not actually a club. And some of you clearly may not relate at all. I consider myself an introvert, but I'm not ashamed of that, and I also know my strengths as an introvert. However, I would argue that there's long been a negative bias against introversion in our society. Even in pop culture, for example, there's this classic narrative that being a big presence and being sociable is synonymous with popularity and success. Even in teen coming-of-age movies, the protagonist always transforms from a quiet, bookish character into the wildly successful and popular prom queen. And the issue is that us teens have grown up with these narratives being reinforced around us. But you may be asking, okay, so what? So what if there's a bias against introversion? And here's the answer, because it translates into real life. Our world is significantly more geared towards extroversion. Think about it. Even in the workplace, the culture is competitive, and it's the person with the loudest voice in the room and with the most ideas, although may I note, not necessarily the best ideas, but the most ideas nonetheless, that is noticed more, praised more, and ultimately receives a promotion. Workplaces are also becoming increasingly open plan to allow for hyper-collaboration. And that's not to say we don't need collaboration. We do need collaboration. But introverts love solitude, which is where we're most creatively inspired, intellectually challenged, and stimulated. But this isn't also just a problem in the real world. In fact, it is also an issue in schools, and it starts in schools. We seat kids at group tables, we encourage pair work, we tell the quieter kids in class to speak up more, and even the children who like to read in the classroom at break times are told to put on their coats and go and play with their friends. And again, that's not to say we don't need collaboration. We do need to teach our children how to work well in teams, how to listen well to each other, and how to articulate their innermost thoughts and ideas. But it's about balance. And I would actually argue that it's more important to encourage the more extroverted children to think for themselves, to be self-sufficient, because after all, it all translates into adult life. There's no group project for paying bills. You can't do a job interview as a pair. And when a grieving friend, say, comes to you, they don't want you to speak up more. They just want you to listen. We as a society need to value these introverted characteristics more. In fact, introverts make the best employees, parents, and friends. We're naturally reflective, contemplative, and thoughtful, and so often in a constant state of self-improvement. Clearly a useful characteristic, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. In fact, some of the world's best inventors, creatives, and leaders are introverts. Take a couple of examples. Barack Obama, Meryl Streep, Rosa Parks, Albert Einstein. And clearly, it's a significant strength to be able to spend time with yourself in case a deathly pandemic threatens to put you under house arrest, but also only in solitude can you truly take the time to reflect and learn about yourself. But I do want to say two things. First of all, that there clearly is no clear-cut definition between the labels introvert and extrovert. Even Carl Jung, the psychologist who first popularized these terms, said that it's a spectrum, and everyone falls somewhere in between, and indeed everyone is a mixture of both. And secondly, the labels introvert and extrovert are just that. They're labels. We humans love labels. We love categorizing things and putting things into boxes in order to make sense of the complexity of life. But they are useful as tools and concepts to help us understand ourselves and also for us to connect with like-minded individuals. You can search up any video about introversion on YouTube, and you get thousands and thousands of comments like these, written by people saying they feel misunderstood and underappreciated as introverts. We need to teach our children to value their individual strengths and to recognize their strengths as introverts and indeed as extroverts. I have two little brothers, and whilst they're only 6 and 9, already I can tell that they're at very different ends of the introversion-extroversion spectrum. One loves to barge into my room without knocking, which I love, shouting, "Can you come and play with me?" Whilst the other prefers to write, "Can you come and play with me?" on a piece of paper and slip it under my door. The other can also always be found in the center of the household, playing some kind of activity with someone, whilst with the others, sometimes I have to physically go and search for him before I find him curled up in the corner of the room reading Harry Potter. But I don't want either of them to grow up feeling like they have to be something they're not. I don't want either of them to grow up feeling like they have to be a certain way because that's the only way they'll make friends or be praised in class or receive a promotion. I'm going to talk to them and tell them that how they are is just right. I'm going to talk to them, although I may need to disappear to the bathroom for a quick break. Thank you.